Hello, you're very welcome along to another episode of the Tackling Sport podcast and a special golf Ryder Cup preview night here tonight. We're getting a nice and early tea time here on Monday night. And delighted to welcome, as always, it's Daniel here, but delighted to welcome my brother, Sean, and our Ryder Cup resident at Tackling Sport.
Hi, Daniel, how are you getting on?
Not too bad. It's your kind of week, Sean, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I really do. I think it's one of the most unique weeks in sport because I think it's rare you see sports people in a completely different headspace and zone to what they are from week to week. So it offers you, a different perspective, and I don't think there's enough of that really in sport. I don't think there's enough of kind of going outside people's comfort zone, and I think this week the Ryder Cup has proven, and the Solheim Cup as well. It can produce stars, and it has done over the past. And we're going to be looking at someone this week going to be like Leona Maguire, going to be the star of the show.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's pretty exciting. But yeah, just for the rest of the listeners to know, Sean literally is obsessed with the Ryder Cup, talks about it all the time. He's as good as the Sky Sports lads are giving it a plug. But speaking of plug, delighted to welcome Mark Fox from the Plug Live. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Dan, thanks very much for having me on. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a big week. And also delighted to welcome Conor Nolan from Nolan.golf. Conor, welcome to the show.
Yeah, cheers, Dan. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Well, listen, we'll go to you, Mark, first, maybe, in terms of I wanted to just have a quick segment on Ryder Cup memories. When I say the Ryder Cup to you, what sticks out down through the years?
Oh, man. Dan, I became interested in golf back in probably 2018. I was lucky enough to go to the 2019 Masters. So my history of golf isn't as good as a lot of people would think. But, I've watched, nearly all of the Ryder Cup recaps on Sky Sports. And nothing sticks out more than the Ian Poulter at Medina. It's the most obvious, but the fist bumps he was given, the jumping in the air, Rory, one of the best players in the world at the time, sitting back just watching Poulter making all these birdies, and then that was great and all, but then that inspired the Sunday at Medina where they won the singles. So they were 4 points down going into Sunday. It was just incredible. And the thing is that we can't even say that was a one-trick pony because he's been absolutely brilliant ever since. So I think that really got everybody talking about him. And man, I get goosebumps every time I watch that. And it's all over social media this week, and rightly so. That is the biggest hype video there can be for this week.
Yeah, Conor, I guess it's hard to talk about the Ryder Cup, and I think the Ryder Cup was big up to the Medina, but it's almost like Medina kind of kicked it on into a whole new level, and that Sunday singles still gets me every time I watch it on Sky Sports.
Yeah, no, it's I think it is no matter who you ask, Medina 2012 it's probably the one that sticks out the most. What was it? Something like 10-4 going into Sunday, and I'm sure I think we were chatting about it already, but in terms of the Sunday being very important, I'd love to have seen what they were in play in the bookies at that time, because it was literally an absolute shot in the dark. But the whole story with Lazabal and Seve on the shoulder that week, it was you couldn't write it better in a Hollywood script. So it was that's hard to beat. Then from an Irish perspective, I guess 2006 in the K Club with Darren Clark, emotional scenes on the green, McGinley holding the putt, the winning putt, Cameron Bowen, early 2000s. There's good Irish history to Ryder Cup, so hopefully Larry can do a job this week as well.
Absolutely, yeah, 2006, Sean. But for you, and it's Medina, isn't it? I know we watched it together, and isn't it the Justin Rose putt that sticks out in particular against Phil Mickelson, among a host of other moments in that Ryder Cup? Oh, just on mute there, bud.
Yeah. Apologies for all of Poulter's brilliance on the Saturday. I think Justin Rose's win, considering he was 1 down or 2 down, I think with 3 to play, and he wrestled that back. And it's just an amazing week, really, and I think Conor makes a great point there. I think we've been very lucky with our history in the Ryder Cup, and going back to Christy O'Connor, Paul McGinley holding the winning putt, Philip Walton in '95, Graham McDowell 2010. Ireland has been very intrinsically linked with the Ryder Cup, and it's brilliant to have again another Irish captain. It's been we've had Darren, we've had Paul in recent years. We're probably going to have GMAC in a few years. So for such a small island, we've always punched above our weight in golf, and it's brilliant, I think, to have that fresh interest of having Lowry in there, because he's deserved it. It's not often that a European wins a Ryder or wins a major, and it's very important that you make the Ryder Cup team and you can build on. So I'm expecting a big week for him, and again, brilliant to have Padraig Harrington, one of Ireland's greatest ever sports person, one of the most meticulously detailed people in their approach to sport. So hopefully it's reflected in his team's performance over the week.
Absolutely, and he's definitely the most revealing, Harrington, out of all the golfers, or maybe Irish sports people, in terms of his interviews. So even the day-by-day interview side of things will be very interesting. But maybe, Conor, on to you just on the Irish interest side of things, and Sean kind of teed that up nicely. I guess it almost is new having Shane Lowry there. You've obviously got Rory McIlroy and Padraig Harrington. So, there would be Ryder Cups that it was just Rory involved. So it's great to having Harrington, Rory and Shane representing Ireland this week.
Yeah, no, it was definitely... Leona's after teaming up so well. Yeah. I think the interest this year in the Solheim Cup was definitely, maybe from an Irish perspective, it seemed like there was far more coverage of it, and it lived up to all expectations. It was phenomenal. But I think it feels weird for Lowry because I'm from Termonfeckin, right beside County Louth, where he won the Irish Open all those years ago, and it just seems like it's been so long that he's been on the scene and kind of winning WGCs and competing in tournaments all over the world, and he wasn't involved in the Ryder Cup till now. So it is great that he finally got a spot, even if it was a captain's pick, and he probably should have, even you would have thought he'd get there on his own merit. But it's from an Irish perspective, it's one of the most exciting Ryder Cups in years.
Yeah, Mark, just on that, I guess with Shane Lowry, it was obviously disappointing, particularly the fact he had got himself in contention in the BMW PGA, and I think a solo eighth would have ended up being enough for him. Was there any question in your mind he was going to get picked maybe ahead of Justin Rose, or was that always Padraig Harrington, just leaving Padraig Harrington aside, obviously, that he was always deserving of that pick?
Yeah, no, I think he's always deserving of that pick. Had numerous discussions with people on Twitter about this, because people were trying to argue that Justin Rose should have got it because he had 2 top 10s in majors, and he had a fourth place finish there in 2015. But in 2015, he was playing some of the best golf in his life. He had something like 6 top 8s out of 7 events on the way into that. He was brilliant. But Shane Lowry this year, I think he's actually been playing really well, and he's really underspoken about. And I think that's the thing that makes it a little bit nicer from an Irish perspective, is the fact that Shane Lowry feels like he's earned this spot in the team. It's not like he's just been given it just because Harrington has the Irish roots there with Shane. I think Shane's actually really gone out there and earned that spot. I think he's had a brilliant year, and his stats don't lie about that. And when we're talking about him possibly competing at events at some of these majors, it's I suppose revealing exactly as to how good he is. So yeah, I'm excited to see Shane this week. I'm excited to see what he brings, see who Harrington pairs him with, and what sort of role that he plays. But I think he could be very good this week.
Yeah, and Sean, I think a lot of people, when they kind of crunch the numbers on it, were kind of looking at going, Ian Poulter at all golfers maybe shouldn't have made the team outside just, and Justin Rhodes was probably better on form, but then you add the Medina, you add Ian Poulter, Postman into it, and he's really going to get picked, despite the fact his record isn't overly great outside. Obviously, he hasn't lost a singles game, but in recent Ryder Cups, I think he's maybe, one half the points he kind of needed to win.
Yeah, I think the problem with Poulter has been trying to find the perfect partner for him. I don't think they've really found anyone that is 100% rocked the boat with him, and it'd be interesting to see. Having written down a few pairings, it'd be interesting to see what they go with him. Because he's such a 4-ball player, he kind of needs to be playing his own game, and he hasn't necessarily found the right foursomes partner. I just gone back on Justin Rose again. I think he's unlucky. I think it would have been a more difficult choice for Harrington to make between Wiesberger if he hadn't qualified and Justin Rose, and I think he would have probably sided with Rose, and it would have maybe strengthened the team in other ways. But that being said, I think Bernd Wiesberger deserves to be in the team. He's had a brilliant year on the European Tour. He's someone who is waiting for his big break, and I think it could well happen this week. But with Rose, I understand the frustration with him. He was very unlucky not to make it in 2010. It was well documented. I think it was Harrington who got picked ahead of him. I think he had a top 5 at the 2015 PGA at Whistling Straits. He'd been kind of trending in the right direction, and he's a big game player. I think maybe what would have helped if either him or Stenson were already in the team, because obviously they've formed that brilliant partnership over the last couple of Ryder Cups. And maybe if you're just looking at the pairings, I'm not sure maybe who Rose would have been best suited to, and that's maybe just maybe something as well that played on Harrington's mind. But You know, the thing is, Garcia and Poulter, they've been wildcard picks before. They understand the pressures that come with that. So it's a difficult tag to have, because, you know, Garcia going into the last Ryder Cup was really struggling, hadn't played a lot of golf, with kind of a bad couple of months in his private life, and then, you know, performed that so admirably over the course of the week at Paris. So he is someone that him and Poulter are going to have to deal with a lot of pressure that comes with being a wild card. But, you know, I'm well sure they're going to be up to the task.
Yeah, Mark, maybe just switching a little bit to the captaincies, and obviously Padraig Harrington versus Steve Stricker. Interesting note, like, I think Steve Stricker's played in 3 Ryder Cups on that side of things, so I was kind of surprised to see that, you know, very little experience in Ryder Cups despite his long career, being given the captaincy here. What were your thoughts on maybe Steve Stricker and being selected to be the American captain?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think this is something that the Americans have tried to finalise over the last few years. They've come up with a new task force, because after Tom Watson in 2014 and some of the issues that he came across, and then Phil Mixon obviously speaking out against them afterwards, in one of the most tense conferences that we've ever seen. I think it was just interesting to raise. But yeah, Steve Stricker, listen, I think the players get a little bit more of a say in this now. And like Paul McGinn, like, when we think about Europe, we used to think that Ryder Cup captains should have a major in their back pocket before they're even considered becoming a captain. Paul McGinley then gets that in 2014. He's one of the best captains probably we ever had. So I don't really rate it if they haven't had experience, if they haven't had a major tournament under the belt. I think it's just, I think Stricker could be good. The one thing that would concern me from an American standpoint, and maybe enlighten me from a European standpoint, is that apparently he's not overly analytical. He's not too focused on the data behind it. So in Europe, we've become much more focused on this. The 21st Club in London have become really good at it. And they work alongside closely with the European team. And Paul McGinley, I think, really started this. Thomas Bjorn really adopted it as well. And I think Harrington, being an accountant that he is, he'll have a real big focus on it again this year. Apparently, Steve Stricker is just not as focused on that. I've only listened to that in another podcast, but I thought that was just interesting to hear.
Yeah, and I guess like Europe have almost been obsessed with the numbers, and it was very interesting to go from Paul McGinley to Darren Clarke. I know Sean is a bit rootless on some of Darren Clarke's captaincy decisions, which you might get to in a sec, Sean. But for you, Conor, on the captaincy side of things with Steve Stricker versus Harrington, is there an edge in Harrington based on that bit of analytical, which we've seen ever since 2014, that it makes a massive difference? Yeah,
that's like, it's usually the exact opposite. Americans are usually far better at digging right into tiny kind of metrics, and yeah, it is. I guess it's a person by person basis on that side. But like Stricker, I think the entire American team now with this, as Mark's mentioned, this task force thing. Like, I was listening to a podcast during the week, and Bones, Jim Kay was on it. He was talking about. I think it must have been with a European host, because he said, you guys might laugh at it, but it was so essential for us to kind of build a team around it to try and, I guess, build that camaraderie with the US team, because it's a very emotional tournament, especially when you have guys who are day in, day out, like professionals on their own. They're standalone for 99% of the year, and now suddenly they have to come into a team and kind of get that chemistry that they really don't ever kind of get exposed to. And so, yeah, I think Harrington will do a great job at it. He does seem far more analytical, I guess, than maybe some of the other captains that might have gone before him in the European team. But yeah, I think that the US, while they, in terms of numbers, whether it's kind of world rankings or driving distance or whatever you want, they do seem to have the stats on their side. But I think there is a kind of unseen, something, an intangible metric there of the Europeans just having a better, I guess, for want of a kind of better phrase, a better team or a better dynamic. And I would always kind of factor that in heavily, even though it's very hard to measure.
Yeah, and then I know. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I think I just saw something on this earlier. Tommy Fleetwood came out and said it's one of the best, if not the best, team atmosphere he's ever been involved in this year, which I thought was really interesting. I think Sky Sports reported that earlier, so I thought that was really interesting to hear. Sorry to interrupt you there, Dan.
No, you're grand. It does. It is mad though. Like, it is mad on the team side of things that it always seems this way. Sean, and I know Conor and Mark want to get into the course, which we'll cover in just a second. But for you, Sean, is there danger we over-egg and over-emphasise the Ryder Cup captaincy? Because, as I mentioned, you give Darren Clarke a lot of stick. When I hear about Nick Faldo, I wasn't really born for a lot of his majors, so I just think 2008 losing Ryder Cup captain. Jose Maria Alotable, I'm like, that comeback in Medina. Monty, part of me is like, you got a bit lucky in that with G-Max sealing the putt there. You can nearly throw it away. Is there danger we overemphasize this big time on a ultimately it's down to 12 golfers? Or is there something behind the numbers that maybe we should pay more attention to the captaincy?
No, I think it's described, and it has been described. I think it was Thomas Bjorn that said it was, the biggest and best week of his career. For someone like that, maybe who hasn't got the accolades of maybe a Padraig Harrington or an Olathabel or a Nick Faldo, that maybe to them or to Paul McGinley, it is the biggest week of their career. Now, I'm sure with Harrington and the way he speaks about it, and having been involved in a lot of teams going back, nearly 20 years in Ryder Cups, he knows the importance of it to him and what it means also for his legacy, I suppose. So I think it's a massive week for him as well. The thing with the Americans, I mean, there doesn't seem to be any continuity in the European side. There seems to be a lot more continuity, and maybe this task force is the way they brought it. But I think Steve Stricker has been involved in the last 5 Ryder Cups as a player and as a vice captain. He's been, or 6, I think, player from 2008 and the vice captain for the last 3. And one of the big things I think that they've been building to is he's from Wisconsin, and this is, Whistling Straits is in Wisconsin, and it has always been, it's quite a weird part of the world. They're very vocal. I remember even watching the 2010 PGA and kind of hearing about, Wisconsin being very patriotic, as a lot of those states are in America. And I think that's one of the big reasons he's had a couple of looks at it, and it's funny the way they've done it going back to 2012. I mean, they had Davis Love, who was pretty incredible for the first couple of days. He really seemed to get the pairings right. You had Keegan Bradley and Phil Mickelson, you'd Duffner and Zach Johnson, and everything seemed to just be working. Webb Simpson and Bubba Watson, and then all of a sudden it came crashing down. Tom Watson had a go, and as one of the lads alluded to there, it just went crashing down like nobody's business. And there seems to be a little bit more of a structure now to it, and I do think Steve Stricker has one of the most difficult tasks in golf, trying to get those 12 players together, because having looked at it, there doesn't seem to be any real standout pairings, and who's going to play with DJ. DJ hasn't really been playing great. Who's going to play with Bryson? Who's going to play with Brooks? How are you going to manage that camaraderie in the group? He left out Patrick Reed, and then there was all the tweets that Patrick Reed was liking from an account, and there's all this stuff going on in the background. Billy Horschel, though, goes and then wins the BMW PGA, having won the match play earlier in the year, having not been picked and not been even given a courtesy phone call. So it's a very difficult job to captain the American side. I would definitely say the European side already has that kind of chemistry built in. There's that a little bit of continuity between the vice captains and even certain number of players. You got Westwood, who played in 2002 and going back further. Garcia, who broke onto the scene in '99. So you've got all these players in the European side with that continuity, and I think in the US side you've a lot more people managing to do, and maybe that's why he's not going down the data side as much as the lad said there. Maybe it's all about the pairings and the feel and the vibe and the locker room. And I think for Steve Stricker, he's got to find a way of getting those guys playing for the American flag. And if like that kind of idea for America, they've got to find a way of telling them that they are playing for America, because Americans are very patriotic. When you kind of tell them that they're American and they're going to do it for America, and this kind of Captain America comes over them, because otherwise it's just 12 millionaires sitting in a room, playing a bit of golf. So Steve Stricker has a really difficult job in his hand, and it's one of them. I think if the US team clicks, I think it'll be an unstoppable force, but it's all about clicking.
I think best part about that Patrick Reed liking all those tweets was he actually had a chance of making the team. Brooks Koepka, nobody was sure about his wrist. Patrick Reed doesn't make the team. He goes liking all these tweets. Like, how is Stricker supposed to bring him back into the team if Koepka's not well? And then the next night he unlikes them. So whoever is over that account, I don't know if they did a good job or a bad account by Paddy, or a bad job by Paddy Reid's account, but yeah, that was pretty funny. I think just to touch on your point there, Sean, I think that's a good point. Stricker he's a lot of egos to deal with. Like, I think we're lucky here in Europe that when we bring experience and people that might not play all 5 matches, you'll have Lee Westwood there or Matthew Fitzpatrick or Tyrrell Hatton. They'll be happy maybe to play 2 or 3 matches, but they don't expect to play all 5 because they know that's Rory's job. Whereas every single one of these US players, I genuinely think that they all think that they should be playing all 5 matches. You try telling Bryson, listen, you're only going to be playing 2 4-ball sessions and you're going to be playing the Sunday singles. He's going to be thinking he should be out there for all 5 matches. Same with Brooks, same with DJ. I think Stricker has a really tough job in his hands trying to manage all the egos and all the expectations. But yeah, hopefully he doesn't do a good job for our sake.
Sure, Bryson will be delighted. He will have used up less energy for the long drive afterwards.
I got money on to win that.
But it's something that crossed my mind when you mentioned that, Mark, was Paul McGinley talking to Graham McDowell and telling him his role, and one of you guys can remember the exact role, but it was playing with Victor Dubuisson in the 4-ball or the foursomes. I can't remember on the top of my head.
He was playing the 4-ball or the foursomes.
Yeah, foursomes.
So format they didn't like at all.
That's it. So as far as I remember, he played those 2, and that's all he was needed for. And then the singles, and it revitalized the fact he had that chat with him maybe 3 or 4 months out. The emotion of it's gone. So it does show you how important the captaincy is. We have a question on Twitter, so do keep your comments in if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. This will be out in a full podcast afterwards as well. First thing tomorrow morning. So thoughts on the course and its setup in Whistling Straits. In particular, the Real Harveys 2 on Twitter mentions, Mark, that he doesn't think doesn't think he'll suit Rory's game. How do you kind of view Whistling Straits? Because you've been looking at the course a little bit.
Yeah, I think actually, funny enough, today I was actually listening to an interview with Rory back in 2016, and he was saying that the funny thing is when you get into these match play situations, all you want to do is just try to hit the ball as hard as you can, and you start stepping on it, and then I can't remember who he's playing with, but he's like, just keep hitting that ball as hard as you can, and eventually they're going to start pulling them left. So I think Rory, did you see the video of the rough today?
No. It's
honestly, I'd say it's a half an inch thick. There's nothing there, and I think Stricker set it up like that just so Bryson or DJ or Brooks can go out and just spray it as far as they can and not have any rough to deal with and make the pins really accessible for them. I don't mind Rory this week. I think he's good. My key part for Rory is, sorry, I know I'm supposed to touch on the course, but my key part for Rory is I just hope they don't put him out with a rookie on Friday morning. He went out with Andy Sullivan in 2016, lost. Went out with 2018. He went out with I can't remember off the top of my head, but
yeah,
Ram, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it was Ram, was it? But anyways, he lost that as well. I think if you give him, he went out with Olsen. If you go out with if you give him actually a more experienced partner to go out, because we're struggling in the mornings on Fridays. But just to touch on your bit about the course, 7,700 yards, we could struggle. It depends really on what sort of parents that we put out. I was actually reading a little bit by the No Laying Up guys, and there's 8 holes over 489 yards long, and 5 of them are uneven. 3 of the 4 par 3s are odd. So that means that what you want to do is make sure that your long driver is teeing off on the even holes, and then make sure that your better iron players are teeing off on the odd holes. And they actually put forward a Tony Finau Morikawa partnership in theirs, which I thought was really interesting. So Marcow could have hit approach shots into the odd holes, and Tony Finau could take the long drives. I think that with the course being with no rough on the course, I think it's going to be tough for Europe. Like if we're putting Matthew Fitzpatrick out there Sunday singles and he's averaging whatever he's averaging, maybe 285 off the tee, and he's coming up against DJ who's averaging 320 off the tee, and that could be tough. But listen, I'm not going to write us off. I think we're up against it, and when it's being played on US soil especially, and they have control of how things are set up, or when the greens are cut or anything, I think that's going to be tough. But listen, hey, put Rory out first thing Sunday morning, give him the point, and then we try to start seeing blue on the board.
Yeah, Conor, for you on the course, I know you have an interesting kind of story to tell us about the Whistling Straits course itself.
No, it's just like I was chatting with someone during the week about it, and it was more that like when you think of Whistling Straits, like I think I can't remember his name, Kohler, the guy who owns the group that actually started the course. But when he said to Pete Dye, when he was designing it, he said he wanted to be like Old Ballybunion. So like they designed it with an Irish links in mind. And you just think as like the USPGA picking a course to play Europe against, where there's probably going to be a big GB&I contingent, and the Spanish lads are great in links as well. Like put it in a parkland. Like don't give them the advantage of potentially putting it on a course that would feed to any sort of advantage to the UA team. And that applies directly to us as well. Like if it was in Royal County Down or in Adair Manor, the Americans are probably going to play better in Adair Manor. So I think it's all money driven. McGinley was asked about it during the week because it's a bit not strange, but you think when you have some sort of a home advantage or some sort of control, and as Mark said there, cutting the rough short, great for the longer drivers to come up against I don't think there's much of a difference in the top five in each team, but definitely towards the bottom half of the team, there is definitely, when you get to Scotty Scheffler and Matt Fitz, it's a small hotel between their balls. So it's the home advantage piece and being able to kind of think about it from that side, I think gets overlooked a small bit. The other side is that the US picked their courses 10, 15 years in advance, so it's not really a thing, whereas we're a bit shorter over here. But yeah, I thought it was not interesting, but just if there's ever a course that you could pick perfectly for a European team to go and win in the US, Whistling Straits is one of them.
Yeah, yeah, go on, Mark. Yeah.
Can I jump in with a quick question here, Conor, Sean, and Dan? Do you think that should be an independent organisation setting up the courses, or do you think that the home advantage should allow you to set up the course? I've heard Nolan up talking about this a little bit, and they've discussed on CBS Sports as well.
Yeah, God, it should be independent, really. But I think it comes back to even picking the courses. There's a designated body for it. Even in Europe, it's split up into 3 organizations to pick the courses. So I think it is a case of let's just set it up to help the team. Yeah, I think it's done like that anyway. Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. It's done like that. My thing is, like, if the home team is winning early every year, like, then it just becomes a little bit more repetitive. I just love to see, because you have everything anyway. You have all the fans behind you. I'd love to see an independent organization come in and say, right, and I don't know, the next issue you'd have is who's the last team to go, who's the last team to have home advantage setting up the course. But I'd love to see one coming in and say, right, we're going to set up the course and we're going to cut this rough fairly, and we're going to make the fairways like within regulation and not make them too narrow or not make them too wide. I'd love to see it. I think it'd be a little bit of a better spectacle. But yeah, I thought it was just an interesting conversation that I heard.
Yeah, Sean, just for you, for me, like I kind of do love the home aspect and the tactic of setting up a home course, but something you said there, Mark, it does kind of get a bit repetitive. And I know I like this Ryder Cup is exciting, but I think the next one, Europe having the home advantage, but not for the Bombers. They'll set it up, and I just see another dominant European performance that Sean maybe does get a small bit boring.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the same in other sports, it's like the same. And I suppose cricket being a prime example, when England play Australia and England go to Australian cricket and the conditions are alien to them, and then when Australia come to England and they change the pitches up and it's English conditions, it is one of them. Look, it plays a massive role. I think there's no denying it played a big role in Medina when the rough was as thin as it's ever been. And then last time out in Paris, Thomas Bjorn put the ropes back 20-30 yards, so the fairway or the rough wasn't being trampled on, so the Americans were getting even worse lies, and they couldn't bail out that way. So it is one of them. On Conor's point on the golf course, yeah, I think Whistling Straits, if you were to pick some kind of classic course that would suit the Europeans, it probably would be this one. But that being said, most of professional golf is played in American kind of parkland country clubs, so I think everyone's kind of used to that now. I do think it will add a different dimension this week. Be interesting to see how the course is set up. I think we probably won't see that till Friday morning, really, because last time out of 2016 at Hazeltine was just a complete birdie fest on the Sunday. The course was set up a joke, flags in the middle of every green, and I think it was Justin Rose that said every time he had a putt today, he thought he was going to hole it because it was just flat, straight on the middle of the green. So it is that part where, yeah, maybe it will get repetitive, and like everything in sport, well, you know, the Ryder Cup will have to evolve, but I don't think it's seen a change for a number of years yet.
Yeah, there is just even on just on the course, I think, and we might dig into a bit more on the parent side and the length, but like McGinley was kind of asked about it during the week, and I think a lot of Stricker's decisions on the captain's picks were heavily influenced by distance. And McGinley made the point that I came tied 6th here in 2004 or 2006, whenever the PGA was on, and he's not a particularly long hitter, so maybe they might set it up a bit longer this week. But it will obviously be an advantage, but I think it's not going to be the defining factor. Obviously, if there is very short rough, that's definitely adding another layer of complexity to it. But I think the whole distance kind of that kind of swinging contest has been overplayed completely. And yeah, as you said, Mark, again, when you get up there and start slapping balls as hard as you can, the guys like Bryson will obviously be a bit different, but when you get down to the kind of mid-European guys, like they're not going to be hitting it crazy far behind. They're still going to be in the same kind of postcode. So I think the distance thing has been completely overplayed. But yeah, it's definitely a factor.
Yeah, I guess the Europeans definitely seem to have a better home advantage than maybe the US, even if they set the course up, because as long as the Europeans are hitting straight, they'll be right behind them. And we'll move on to Team Europe. And so we've got Team Europe, we're going to cover Team USA, and then we're going to get to the parents and score predictions. So the best stuff is yet to come here, lads. So maybe go to you for this, Mark, on Team Europe. So I'll just name the team here. So we got Paul Casey, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tommy Fleetwood, Sergio Garcia, Tyrrell Hatton, Victor Hovland, Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy, Ian Poulter, John Rahm, Bernd Wiesberger, and Lee Westwood. And then Padraig Harrington's the captain, and 5 vice captains in Luke Donald, Robert Carlson, Martin Keimer, Graham McDowell, and Henrik Stenson.
Yeah, like I think what we said earlier is actually an important point. I think in top 7, top 8 maybe, we are strong. We're well able to compete there. It's when it gets down to the nitty and gritty on a Sunday afternoon, late in the singles, and if it's coming down to those last few matches, and you have Matthew Fitzpatrick, or you've like there's 4 lads there: Westwood, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, and Wiesberger. Just a little bit nervous about them. Their numbers aren't great over the last few months. I think someone like McIlroy, he, like we mentioned earlier, I think he just needs to go out with someone that's experienced first. I'd love to see him going out with Poulter personally Friday morning. And yeah, I think Paul McGinley talked a little bit about this during the week when he was captain in 2014. He didn't want Rory going out first because there's an expectation on the first guy out that's going to be your best player that week. And if he's going out there, expectation is that he's going to win if he's going out first, and then there's no ceiling. Like, you can only go so far. So I think McIlroy is a big part to play, and I think he'll have a big job bringing on a lot of the other lads like Lowry and Wiesberger. I think Lowry could actually have a good week. I think, like we said earlier, he'll be inspired by Leona Maguire's play at the Solheim Cup, and it's going to mean a lot to him as well. I think having Padraig Harrington as his captain, it's somebody he can trust in and confide in and bring questions to openly, because they have that friendship between them. I think I'd love to see McIlroy going out with Lowry maybe Friday afternoon. Then just, I suppose, touching through the other guys, I think Rahm will have a chip in his shoulder. Didn't get player of the year. Don't ask me why.
And just on that, Mark, you had interesting comments about it today. He wasn't too happy at all. No,
and rightly so. I can't believe. Ideal showdown now Sunday, Cantley Rahm. That's all I want. Give me that, and then I'll pay my subscription for the pay-per-view event. But I think Rahm will have a chip in his shoulder, and I think he could be pretty good. He didn't have a great result in Paris, 1-2-0, and 1 point from 3 matches. But I think he could be good. Defeated Tiger on Sunday. Last one I'll touch on here, MVP for me this week, and I put it out on Instagram earlier, would be Victor Hovland. He got out of the group at the WGC match play. I can see Alex Talon is actually bringing him up here as the GOAT, and I am with you, Alex. He will be incredible this week. First Norwegian to ever play in the Ryder Cup team. Padraig Harrington was interviewed in an Off the Ball article earlier this week, and apparently 11 people wanted to play with him. Everybody in the team was asked who they'd like to play with, and all 11 said they'd like to play with Victor Hovland. And usually people only come forward with 1 or 2. Like he won the US Amateur, which is a mix of stroke play and match play. And yeah, 2021, he's 5th off the tee, which will be really important this week, and he's 15th in approach. Man, I think he'll be absolutely phenomenal this week. And hey, even if he's bogeying every hole, whoever's playing with him just gets to looking at him smile, will probably pick up their game by themselves. So yeah, I think he'll be very, very good this week.
Yeah, for you, Conor, on the European side of things, I think it's a good way to lead on there with Viktor Hovland. He's got a major in him 100% over the next. We say that about a lot of players, but he does have that major big game feel. So I think the next step outside of major and maybe FedEx for him will be making a big statement at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark hit it there. Not just his his kind of recent form and definitely the potential there, but that year, that year he was in, I think he was in college. The year he won the USAM. Across all the match play, whether it was the Big 12 or the USAM, I think he was 18, 1-0 for match play that year. So I know he's a rookie in the Ryder Cup, but he knows how to win a game. And that is a very, very important part of the Ryder Cup and of any match play tournament. It's a totally different competition to stroke play. It's the same reason Poulter has the best winning percentage history in the history of the Ryder Cup, because he knows how to win a match. And it takes, I guess, a killer instinct in that regard, even though he is smiling and seems like the happiest man in the world. Like when it comes to it, I think Sevi might have said it. I might be smiling at you, but inside I want to kill you when he comes into a match against you. So it's that kind of proper will to win and know how to win in a match play situation. Yeah, I was not surprised, but like when you go through the team, like we've 6 English people, and we've Lowry and McIlroy, and we've Sergio and Rahm. Are the picks kind of predict themselves? Is that I'm surprised you didn't say Lowry and McIlroy there straight away. Mark, I thought they'd be the first ones out, bring back the Irish amateur days, and let's see how they go. I know the Poulters and the Garcias, and they've maybe built a few bonds over the years from playing so many Ryder Cups. But I wonder, is maybe on day one, or is some sort of the plan keeping people in the countries and maybe swapping 1 or 2 out to get Hovland in and get Wiesberger in with some of them. But yeah, it's just such a strong English contingent.
Yeah, I think our issue, I know we've won 2 of the last 3, but our issue has been on Friday morning. 18, 16 and 14, we've won 2, lost 9, drawn 1. It's just not good. I think we just need to get off to a good start, and if it's coming down to singles on Sunday, I think we really need to have that lead built up. Personally, I want McIlroy to go out with Lowry. If it's up to me now, I'd prefer to play foursomes on Friday morning, go out and alternate shot, maybe a bit weaker for the US team, and let McIlroy go out with a Poulter or even Paul Casey, and that would be a pretty good partnership for them, just to build that lead. But I'd like to see McIlroy playing with Lowry on Friday afternoon. That's just my personal thoughts anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sean, for you on Team Europe, we'll get into proper pairing selections, Sean, but on Team Europe, just as we read that out, is it a strong enough team, or are you kind of agreeing, are you maybe worried about that bottom 2 or 3 of the European team?
Yeah, I think it does rely on a few people, and I think Viktor Hovland is one of those kind of almost like swing states, you call them in American politics. I think if Viktor Hovland has a good week, I think it will go a long way into Europe winning. I think if him and John Rahm, you got to remember, look, there's a lot of pressure on Viktor Hovland. There's a lot of pressure on John Rahm when he first came in, and he didn't have a greater week as he'd like in Paris. Now he ended in brilliant fashion. I think something similar might happen to Viktor Hovland. Look, I don't think necessarily he'd be my choice for top point scorer. If it does happen, I think, like I said, it'll go a long way in meaning Europe are, thereabouts on Sunday. But I don't necessarily think he would be my number one choice. The one thing there, it's interesting, like he's won the US Amateur before, and Matt Fitzpatrick won it, and they're both kind of set up on similar kind of linksy golf courses to that. I do think Matt Fitzpatrick is well able to provide a good week. I think he's a pretty good match play player. He maybe didn't have the best time of it, or the time he would have most liked in 2016, and he's coming back, and he's had a few. Got to remember, towards the start of the year, he was having really good performances in the US, and I think he's got over that mental barrier of playing in an away Ryder Cup. So I do think he's going to have a big week. It'd just be interesting to see what way they pair him. I know we'll get into our pairings in a bit, but I think Tommy Fleetwood and Shane Lowry are going to have a big week. Garcia again, one of the greatest points in the Ryder Cup, him and Westwood, and Harrington's got that to fall back on. So yeah, there is a lot of positives. There's an air, I think, of uncertainty around some of these players, and I think there is on both sides, but on that Europe side, I'm not 100% sure how guys are going to go, and I don't think Harrington is. And like I said, if Hovland has a good week, if Ram has a good week, then I think he'll go a long way for Europe to win. But we don't know how Hatton's going to get on. I think Mark mentioned a few of them there. You're just not 100% sure how these guys are going to react, and I don't necessarily think we've had that about a European side for quite a while. Maybe in 2016 when you had the likes of Willett, Fitzpatrick, Andy Sullivan played his first Ryder Cup, Thomas Peters. You're not sure how these guys are going to react. Obviously there was the stuff with Willett before with his brother. Thomas Peters came up and was brilliant. McGuire this year was brilliant. You just don't know how few players are going to react, and that's the one criticism I have about that European team.
Yeah, I suppose moving on maybe to USA and the pairings, and do let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube on what pairings you would like to see, and we'll kind of read them out and go through them and come up with our own sort of pairings, the definites for Friday morning maybe. But I love the way there's such a build up to Friday morning pairings that by Saturday afternoon we're like, oh, Shane's playing with Rory. Okay, that's fair enough. You just there's just so much build up to these first, and that's interesting. Stack Mark, just before we move on, that so it's 2 wins and a draw and 9 defeats in the Friday morning.
Yeah, I think it's key, and we were lucky enough that at Paris we actually brought back towards the end of it. And Friday afternoon we actually had a pretty good session. So yeah, I think, and I was speaking with other people about this, that we need to build up a good lead going into Sunday. That's key for us. So yeah, I've been looking. Conor knows this. I just look at all the numbers, and there's some of our players that aren't too good over the last 3 months. So you've Matthew Fitzpatrick. He's 114th in approach in the world over the last 3 months. Tyrrell Hatton, he's 62nd in approach and 94th off the tee. Lee Westwood, 91st in off the tee and 100 in approach. Shane Lowry, 132nd strokes gained off the tee and 100 in putting, 42nd in approach. So that's good, but that's what kind of worries me. We players just not coming into form, which is a little bit worrying. But hey, Dan, we just cross our fingers and pray on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, so maybe on to the USA, and again we'll get to the parents, but I'll just read out the USA team. So you got Daniel Berger, Patrick Cantley, Bryson DeChambeau, Harris English, Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Colin Marcow, Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, and Justin Thomas. And the Ryder Cup captain is obviously Steve Stricker, but then the vice captain, sometimes you might miss a vice captain or two, obviously, because there's 5. So very interesting that Fred Couples, Jim Furyk, Zach Johnson, Davis Love III, former Ryder Cup captain, of course, in Medina, and then Phil Mickelson as well. So on this kind of they sound so strong reading those teams. I always find it very interesting that they have the 6 wildcard picks now and Europe are 3. I always find that fascinating enough, and it seems Steve Stricker's kind of maybe gone with the team here and decided not to pick Patrick Reed.
Yeah, well, to be fair, again, that's another thing where maybe that kind of a decision or that kind of a rule should be standardized as well, because I just find it a bit strange. I much prefer just the 3 Ryder Cup picks. Everyone else fights their way in instead of it ended up being a real kind of captain's tactical battle from the helm. But if you take from your perspective, I'm not sure exactly how they finished in the standings, but as we mentioned there, Hatton, Westwood, Fitzpatrick, they've had a shocking few months. You go back to Bay Hill and the players. When Westwood was toe-to-toe with Bryson, unbelievable. Since then, nothing. But he essentially did enough in the early half of the season to get a spot on the team, which is amazing. 11 Ryder Cups it's outrageous. But at the same time, if we're talking about winners on a Sunday, and it would probably come down to that, I would much rather have one of the young guns. I know there's lots of rookies, but you would put any of them against Westwood and feel fairly confident, or at least they'll be the shorter odds if you were going to look at a head-to-head match on Sunday. But yeah, from a US side, it really is just poster-wise stuff. They're from whether it's the form in the last 3 months, and whether it's the actual overall world rankings, whether it's every single indicator is on paper saying the US is going to walk this. And I know they've a lot of new guys who've never as Poulter was throwing a few digs during the week, saying they've never felt pressure like a Ryder Cup. I'm pretty sure a lot of them, if they're fighting for 15 million quid, it's not a million times different than that. So it's there's a lot of hope there in the European camp. I'd say that some of these new lads don't perform because they don't live up to the occasion or don't step up. Because it's definitely, whether it's right down from DJ just absolutely loving the place, to Cantlay, the unbelievable form he's shown recently, JT in Ryder Cups, Berger in the President's Cup, even though he's a rookie in the Ryder Cup. Like I understand why they're 4-7 to win, but again, it all goes back to that the heart of the European team to get them over the line. But yeah, definitely on paper, it's probably one of the best. It's probably one of the most lopsided in terms of kind of positions teams in years. I haven't looked that up now, but I would say it's very hard to find one even close to it.
Yeah, and for you, Mark, on the players that didn't make it, like you look at that, Patrick Reed, Kevin Na, Kevin Kisner, Billy Horschel won the BMW PGA last week, even Jason Kokrak. I guess 3 or 4 out of those 5 are making the European team, which I kind of guess says it all already in terms of the strength and depth.
Yeah, just touching on that, Conor, I think I actually did see a tweet earlier saying that this is the biggest gap between the overall World Golf Rankings average of the team ever since it began in, I think, 1986. So that's an interesting point that you come out with. But yeah, I saw people calling out for Kevin Kisner and Kevin Na to be included in the team. Personally, I don't think it would have suited them. I think if it was 2018, if we were playing at in Paris, where it was a much more narrow course, a little bit shorter, I think it would have suited them. But just in 7,700 yards, I don't think it makes any sense to really put them in. But yeah, like Patrick Reed was kind of the big omission there. And I was listening to something about this, and I thought it was an interesting dialogue around it, that Patrick Reed went to hospital with COVID, came out with this big sympathy story that he nearly died, and then all of a sudden he's coming back and I'll put on the red and blue, or the red and blue for America, Team USA, Captain America. I think that was an interesting dialogue that I heard, but I don't know if there's any truth in that, but maybe he's trying to get in the good side of Stricker, saying that he'd come back for anything to do with America. And the same around the Olympics, that I'll tug out for my country 2 days beforehand. I'll fly out when the person's not tugging out. So I think the US team is just so strong right now. I think even Harris English, Scotty Scheffler, even Sam Burns, I was left off, and he's had a really good season. Like that was a big omission. So I do think Stricker made the right choices, but my God, it must not have been easy. And when you have the strength and depth of players that you have there, I think it's big. Personally, if I was Stricker, I would want 12 captains picks and kick Brooks Koepka off that team quick. If Stricker's listening right now, get Koepka off your team if you want to win. I am telling you, I don't know what he's doing there. He's coming out and he's saying, I don't want to say it's a bad week, which means that he wants to say it's a bad week. There's times, like, I haven't quoted down here, times where I'm like, I won my match, I did my job, what do you want from me? Like, those egos that you're battling with in the US camp, like, how do you deal with those? And I know Paul McGinley went to Alex Ferguson to ask for a conversation, like, how do you manage egos when you're playing with Manchester, or when you're managing Manchester United? And I think the Europeans have done that quite well. But yeah, hey Stricker, if you're watching this live, get Koepka off that team and maybe get Sam Burns in there fairly quick.
Yeah, and I was looking at all the golfers that didn't make it. I'm annoyed I missed Sam Burns, given this podcast relationship with Sam Burns. Shane Sexton, famously, you lads might not know this, on the podcast said Sam Burns won't be winning any PGA Tour events soon, and then obviously he won the following week, and it's a little Instagram clip you can find on the social media side of things. But Sean, something I thought of when Mark was talking there was, and the ego side of things, and obviously you can talk about Brooks here, but how funny would it be if, like, in my opinion, Paul McGinley's the best Ryder Cup captain of all time. How funny if you could have outside managers or captains and then Paul McGinley took over this US side. Where would he start in terms of the wildcard picks? Would he do the 12 wildcards and kick the egos off? Like, how would you go about, like, how would a good captain go about managing this American team with no affiliation with any of these players?
That's no idea. Just looking at the names I've written, who I think are going to be the big 6 players who are American. I've left out DJ, Brooks and Bryson, considering their world rankings and their status in the game. It's pretty bizarre. So Cantley, JT, Finau, Spieth, Morikawa and Schauffele, and like I said, you've left out a couple of multi-major winners. It's just it's a bizarre time, really. It's a bizarre Ryder Cup team. You wouldn't handpick a lot of these partnerships that we're going to see, but for America, you just hope they manufacture into I suppose strong teams, and that's really something I don't think America got right. And the year they did get it right, is when they won the before the singles. They were 10-6 up, 10-4 up before the last two games on Saturday at Medina, and I can, like earlier, riddle off the partnerships they had that week. And since the last couple of years, there hasn't been anyone really of note. There was Spieth and Reed, and even that went sour, and it was Spieth and JT, and Ricky was always there. You had Brooks and DJ, that's worked. So I don't know, but I do think that Patrick Cantlay is a really good match play player. I think he'll have a brilliant week. Tony Finau is someone having got that monkey off his back. I think he's due a big week. Absolutely dismantled Tommy Fleetwood on the Sunday singles in Paris. JT obviously beating Rory. We know how difficult it is to beat Rory. It's just mad. It's mad to think, you have Morikawa, you have Schauffele. These guys haven't played a lot of Ryder Cups. Colin Marcow, what he's done in the game since the last Ryder Cup, it's mental. But again, he hasn't shown an awful lot of form recently, and that would slightly worry you, considering he had a couple of bad run in the FedEx Cup. Even the way he was talking about the FedEx Cup, and he was kind of saying, or it was said really around it, that how can he have such a good year and not really be rewarded at come the end of the season. So there's all that kind of talk around him, and it'd be just interesting to see how he goes. Remember, Schauffele won the Olympics. I mean, what a year he's had. One of the Mr. Consistents on that team. So it's they certainly, like Steve Stricker, you can't look around and say, look, we don't have the talent to win. It's just about, like I said, find those partnerships that work, like a Keegan Bradley and Phil Mickelson, or a Bubba and Webb Simpson.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the best part of the podcast now. I know people have been kind of toying with their pairings. Maybe Sean, I might go to you just quickly with this one. Maybe the first couple of pairings, maybe on the European side of things, because I said to you when Shane Lowry got the pick, oh, that's Shane and Rory. Great, can't wait for that. And you said you had someone else in mind for Shane Lowry and his partner.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Tommy Fleetwood and Shane Lowry. Two of them fairly similar players, brilliant ball strikers. Tommy Fleetwood's one of the best ball strikers in the world. And if every time Harrington's asked about Whistling Straits, he talks about ball striking and the need for a good ball striker. They have a brilliant relationship off the course. Obviously famously played in Port Rush in the final round. Have played together a lot. Their families are very close, kind of live on tour together. The caddies are close as well, and I think that's really important. And I think they'd be considering Tommy now without Molinari. If you look at the team, I don't think there's anyone that necessarily jumps out of the plane or the page for Tommy Fleetwood to partner with. The thing is, I'm sure Rory will want to play with Shane. I think he's kind of mentioned that in the past. And Rory has, he's not always got what he's wanted, but he's normally, had a pretty good chance of getting what he wants in the Ryder Cup. So I think Fleetwood and Lowry will work. I think that would probably be the best partnership for Shane as well.
Yeah, maybe your thoughts on that, Mark, and do you see that happening, or do you see Shane and Rory sometime during the week being in a partnership together, be it 4-ball or foursomes?
Yeah, I definitely see McIlroy and Lowry going out together. I think it was after the Open or something that McIlroy came out and said that he'd love to play with Shane in the Ryder Cup. It was after one of the majors, I think, anyway. So I think that'll definitely happen. I think they get along so well. I'm a little bit stuck on this part because I think there's a number of players that might only play once prior to the single. So Fleetwood, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, Westwood, Wiesberger. I think they'll struggle to get them out 2 or 3 times because they're just not playing that well. I think Fleetwood's interesting because he went 4-1-0 in Paris, but we have to remember that he was playing really well in 2018. So I can see McIlroy and Lowry going out together. Interesting one here is that Garcia and Wiesberger. Garcia said that he actually really likes Wiesberger. I think he said that they're pretty good friends. So perhaps he could bring him out at some stage in a 4-ball or foursomes. I think Wiesberger was just under a bit of pressure because he just got in because the BMW PGA was double points or something for double Ryder Cup points or quadruple or something. So he was just lucky that it was so heavily weighted because the field was like a little bit stronger than usual. And I'm interested to see who Hovland goes out with. I think that's going to be a really interesting pairing. And obviously he has his pick if Harrington's saying that all 11 players want to go out with him, but I don't know who Harrington's going to put him out with. I personally would like to actually see him going out with Garcia. I think Garcia could just match his energy and match his swing, and then like Garcia could just show him around. I think Garcia has the experience behind him, obviously, as we all know, but I think he could be a really, really good partner for Hovland. I think Casey Casey to go down with Fitz or Matthew Fitzpatrick or Hatton. Just if Fitzpatrick and Hatton have to go out once prior to the match on Sunday, their singles match, I think Casey would be the man, because I think they did that in 2018 and they went out together. So Paul Casey has a big role to play in this Ryder Cup as well. He's been absolutely super over the last few months, and we're actually kind of lucky because nobody is talking about him. I'm just looking at the numbers here. He's like ranked 10th in the world as per Data Golf, as per their like algorithm. So I think that's really interesting when we consider all of the top players in that. Paul Casey is like our third best player in the world at the moment. So yeah, hey, let's see what happens. I think personally for me, I wrote down that McIlroy goes out with Poulter or Garcia on Friday morning, and then he goes out with Lowry in the afternoon. I actually would love to see Ram and Poulter together. I don't think Poulter's playing as well as he could be, but Ram only went 1-2-0 in Paris when he was actually playing pretty good golf at the time as well. So I'd love to see Poulter going out with him, and I think that fire could really get them going. If Seviescu within Ram, I think, like I mentioned, Garcia and Hovland, and then Casey and Fitzpatrick are happening. So yeah, let's see what happens. I don't know who Lee Westwood's going to go out with. I think that's going to be a really tough pairing, and I think you do want to get them out once at least prior to Sunday. But let's see what happens there, and then let's just hope that Bernd Wiesberger can do a Thomas Peters in 2016 and go 4-1-0 and get us 4 points on the board. I'm not overly confident of that happening, but yeah, I'm going to light a candle on Sunday morning.
Yeah, Conor, I'll be honest, I thought we'd get somewhere now, but I think Sean and Mark are just kind of showing how hard it is, and we're not even at Team USA yet, which we'll get to in a second. But for you, maybe on the Shane Lowry point, because that interests me, maybe interests the viewers, I'm very fascinated now. Is he going to go out with Fleetwood? I was sold with Sean, and Mark's kind of made a good point there that realistically it will be Rory, and then Rory will go out with maybe Poulter and Garcia as well. So what are your thoughts on Shane and maybe his role this week?
Yeah, it is. It's cool to think about, and Harrington has a really, really tough kind of job, because he'll either kind of be praised for making amazing decisions that lead to things like Molinari and Fleetwood relationships, or guys that just didn't really gel well together. I don't think the latter is going to happen in any of those cases, because I think if he played with McIlroy and Fleetwood, he would do particularly well with both of them. The Fleetwood is actually a great example. In my head, I just had him with Lowry. I had him with McIlroy. But again, it's 4 matches, and McIlroy has played every single match in every Ryder Cup he's played, bar one. So like he's going to be out there for the 4 ball and foursomes. So it's just a matter of picking and choosing. If it was someone like Fleetwood on Friday and they absolutely tore it up, he could switch it in and leave them in all week. If not, he can switch around. So it's a good problem to have. But yeah, I think it's going to be very tactical, and Harrington really has to play his pawns properly, because with the kind of the guys, I know Casey, that's a great point. He's flying solo under the radar and playing such great golf. But when you have guys like Westwood and Poulter who might only have 1 or 2 games before maybe 1 even game before the Sunday in them, you really have to put them with the right person and get everything out of them. So it is. It's tricky to think about. But you would like to think that the Garcias or the experienced guys going out with the Hovlands and McIlroy with Lowry, and maybe just trying to, I guess, give them a bit of a handhold for the first few holes, even though they might necessarily need it. But Ryder Cup experience definitely has to play a part in it, and really trying to be very tactical about getting the best out of the older guys in particular, which in itself is actually a weird conundrum when you think maybe not the next Ryder Cup, but think of Adair Manor and how young the American team is now. We could be screwed for a long time with the Americans that are playing right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. Sean, maybe just before we go into America, we might go tad over the hour here, but I'm fascinated on Fleetwood. Are you concerned about his lack of form maybe compared to 2018, and maybe is he the right partner for Shane? And then on that Paul Casey point, like that's fascinating. If he is probably arguably our third or fourth best player, which is a bit mad saying that out loud, I guess, but on form he is. Like, the data backs it up.
Yeah, he's had one of those Paul Casey years where it's just a lot of really good performances, and you look at him in the tournament and go, oh, geez, Casey's got a chance if he birdies this, and I can't remember what tournament it was this year that I was watching. I go, geez, Casey has a chance. I think it might have been, I can't remember what it was anyway, but it didn't materialise as it probably often does for Casey. But he's another experienced one. I have him here. I think he'll play with Hatton, or he'll play that kind of role. It worked to decent effect. I mean, Casey's always been a bit of an interesting player to kind of pair with, and he's been thereabouts in a lot of Ryder Cups, and obviously missed a couple as well. Famously, I think he had a brilliant relationship with David Howell. It was in 2006. So I see him going with a Tira Hatton. I've got Fleetwood and Lowry. I think Rory might play with Garcia early on. I think someone like Garcia needs to get the taste of the action straight away in that Friday morning in the foursomes. And then, like, I have it here that Rory and Rahm are going to play all five games. I think that's a given. So then I kind of ran with maybe a Poulter in the opening morning. I've got them two playing 5. I kind of have Hovland and maybe a Fleetwood playing 4. But I think certainly it is. You're right. I think trying to work if Harrington gets the partners right for Rory and Rahm, I think that would be massive as well. The problem is that there doesn't really seem to be a lot of ready-made partnerships automatically jumping out. I mean, like, someone like Westwood could play with anyone, but he hasn't necessarily found a perfect partner in the last couple of years. He had a couple of brilliant ones with Clark when he started. Donald and Garcia for a few years were brilliant. Poulter and Rose for a while, and then Poulter and Rory for a couple of years. But it is going to be interesting how they develop. That's why I think Harrington will try a Fleetwood and a Lowry together, because you could probably play anyone with Rory really, and hopefully get a tune out of Rory. So it does seem like that. Like, looking at it, it can really be a long week for Europe. I think if they don't start well, I think they'll be very under the cosh. I don't think there's any chance that there can be a miracle of Medina or a big European comeback, just judging by how big the American crowd is going to be. Normally there's a big European crowd, and when it's in a parkland golf course, the noise kind of reverberates around, and everything's kind of packed in. Here in Whistling Strait's a massive plot of, or property as they call it in America. It's just an expansive area, and it's going to be difficult for Europe to create that atmosphere around them, because it is so vast, and there's very little European support, with obviously the strict rules that are in place. I know there's a lot of people that have bought tickets and have not wasted money, I've lost money on it. But yeah, that would be some of my pairings. And then you've got then the players I haven't used there. Your Wiesbergers. I think Hovland would maybe get out early on Friday morning as well. It's gonna be difficult for Harrington. It's not as easy as certainly some of the other jobs. And in fairness to someone like Paul McGinley, he had a lot of those partnerships kind of sewn in the bag already.
Yeah, and because you have Mark, if you want to come in there, but just we have comments here. Maybe Sergio Garcia, what's his role this week? Maybe Mark, on top European point scorer, 12-1. Is he going to play that often? Is he going to play the 4 out of 5 games you need minimum to be the top European scorer?
Yeah, I think he has a chance to win 66% of the match side plays. If he's playing 3 matches, I think he win 2 points. I don't think he'll be out all 5 times. I think somebody like McIlroy or Rahm or Hovland have more chance of being out more often. Are they going to win as much? That's questionable, but I think they'll get more points than Garcia this week. Garcia's a key role to play this week. Obviously in 2018 he makes that cut, and then he becomes a top Ryder Cup point scorer of all time. So people are going to really look up to him, and it's not like he's a boring player in there. He has a lot of fire and heart that he'll bring with him to the course. So if he's bringing a Hovland under his wing, or if it's Patrick or a Hatton, like, I don't think he'd bring Fitzpatrick or Hatton, but he'll have a key role to play in, like, calming them down, bringing them to the first tee. Oh, I'll take this first tee shot. Don't worry about this one. So I think Garcia is a big role to play there. Just on your matchups there, I think, like we mentioned this already, we're going to be relying so much on 3 or 4 people to sustain this energy throughout the 3 days. So it's a long week, and I was surprised the fact that they only flew, some of them only flew out this morning. like considering that the US team were all there practicing last week. I think the caddies were in there like a few months ago. The US caddies, Steve Stricker brought them all up to look at the course and look around it. So I was surprised. And then Ram playing again this week, misses the cut at the Fortinet Championship. I'm a little bit nervous about that, but listen, I'm sure it'll be grand. But yeah, I think we're going to be relying a lot on McIlroy, Ram, Casey, and Hovland, and to really lean on in all the matchups, and then Poulter and Garcia just to do their own Ryder Cup thing.
Well, listen, we'll get on to US, but I thought it was interesting that Steve Stricker warmed up for the Ryder Cup this week by playing on the Champions Tour, and Padraig Harrington warmed up by dropping his son off to Old Conna because he was playing in the 4-ball ahead of us, Sean, wasn't he? So it just kind of shows you different preparation. At the end of the day, everyday life kind of happens as well in between. You can't just prepare for Ryder Cup 3 years out and just have it obsessively over your life. So it's good kind of interesting dynamic there. Connor, we'll go to you and we'll try and fly through the American pairings as best we can because you can be here all day. But I suppose a good way to start, Emma Deeney, another comment. Patrick Cantlay or Bryson, surely an unbeatable 4-ball. Is that a 4-ball for you then? Maybe not a foursomes match, obviously, but any good pairings you've seen in that American teams? Oh, just on mute there. Sorry, you're on mute there, Connor.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't put Bryson and Cantlay near each other. Especially after the spat. Was it the Tour Championship, or maybe the camera where it was during playoffs anyway, and it was on the 18th.
BMW,
actually, sorry, yeah, and I think Cantlay was just walking like very quietly behind him, and Bryson standing over the ball. There's no way he saw him, but kind of threw a stub across the fairway at him. So I don't know if there's a great relationship there. I don't know if there's a great relationship between Bryson and the majority of the US team.
Just on Cantlay and Bryson, it'd be so slow as well. Like you'd be there all day.
No thanks. Yeah, there'll be a few penalty strokes. We might need them actually. So that can be good. But yeah, it's Bryson is just an enigma this week. I don't know if he wants to be there. He's been literally training for the World Long Drive all week. He's not very discreet about it on social media, and he just seems like maybe in 4-ball just leave him do his own thing, but in foursomes, I'd be very tempted to pass by him. He did have one good relationship was with Harris English during the whole Brooksy saga when Berger or English came off the green. I think they were head to head at the end of I can't remember where it was, but he defended him straight away. So there's some sort of a relationship there, which could be an easy out for Stricker. But yeah, he's going to be a very kind of tricky guy to pair up with. The obvious ones are like JT and Spieth. Go back to just bring in Smiley Kaufman and Ricky Fowler, and you'd be having a party. They're just perfect together. I don't really like in terms of the Americans. Then it gets into a grey area where you have DJ, who's like the experienced guy in the field, and he only has 5 Ryder Cups. Well, only compared to Europe, it's a relatively small number. And Spieth then is number 2 with 4. So like the experience just isn't there. I think the combined matches played for Europe is something like 170, and the US is like 40-50. So like it's a very inexperienced Ryder Cup team, and I think when Poulter was saying it during the week, it's something that Europe are really going to have to rely on or hope for, that it comes to pay good towards the end of the week. I do think the head-to-head Sunday it doesn't really matter that much, but it will be about those first 4 games or first 4 rounds, trying to get as much as a buffer as possible, and then just really hope for some guys to stand up on Sunday evening with a few Justin Rose-esque puts on the 17th to get us over the line.
Yeah, Sean, maybe you, and then maybe Mark, you come in off the back on Sean. Any of your parents you're thinking of, and the Brooks Bryson thing, DJ, there's so many names that you gotta like you said, maybe take them out of the top 6 and just play them 2 or 3 times and make sure they're all right and happy out during the week. I don't know how you would go about doing that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think the singles is going to be big for America. I think if they can really hammer home their advantage in the singles. So I think it's about trying to get your big 2 or 3 partnerships playing the majority of the pairings games. I think someone like Harris English, or I had maybe a Daniel Berger in with Bryson. Like I don't think anyone else is going to want to play with Bryson. I think if you're a rookie, you might just be thrown in there and could work in your could work in your advantage. I mean, Bryson can take it to places on the golf course that probably no one else can. I have Xander and Colin Marcow. I think they're both similar games, you know, almost carbon copies of each other. Both, you know, play at the same kind of pace, with the same kind of expression and the same kind of idea on golf. Obviously, JT and Speed. I think, you know, who Cantley plays with could be big. I think maybe Cantley or Finau. I think Tony Finau, I said earlier, is a big player for them. You know, he's played with DJ, I think, in the past. I'd like to see Cantley and Finau. You could see someone like Cantley and Scotty Scheffler in the four balls. For someone like that in the four balls, them two rookies going out, you've got the whole crowd behind you. I think it's really interesting. Like Poulter's a really good record away from home. You know, he's brilliant in 2008. I think he played 2004, 2012, missed it in 2016. So Poulter excels against the crowd and the, you know, the atmosphere, and I think that's why he'll have a brilliant Ryder Cup this year. I think where American players have done really well in the past, you know, your JB Holmes, your Boo Weekleys, Ryan Moores, is when they play at home on late in the afternoon when the crowd are, you know, intoxicated and they're playing the four balls, and it's almost easy golf. It's fun golf. And that's where I think someone like Scotty Scheffler could really, him and a Cantley or a couple of rookies together, just going out, and they're not under any pressure. They don't need experience of dealing with the crowd because the crowd is on them. It's that buzz. And I really think that's where America will have improved on from 2018. You know, America have normally always been pretty good in the singles, bar a couple of blips in the recent years. But this year, certainly they look like a singles team. But the Friday afternoon when the four balls, and I think it's probably deliberately done by Stricker to get the four balls in the afternoon when the crowd are really behind them, and, you know, guys like Scheffler and Harris English can come in, and DeChambeau, you know, imagine DeChambeau will play four balls. He probably won't play foursomes, but if he does play four balls and he's there, I think it was the 10th, I'm not sure if they changed the layout, but the 10th in I remember the PGA in 2010, Bubba tried to drive the green. It's an uphill. I think he did in the playoff, or he did it late in the day on Sunday. I just see Bryson doing that on a Sunday afternoon when the crowd is raucous. I think that can, you know, really help the Americans. So I think he'll pick his foursomes teams will be, you know, his Xander and his Colin Marcow as his JT Spieth, probably Finau in there with someone, with DJ maybe, and then his four balls will just be almost like let the kids play, let the lads go out and, you know, play fun golf. And that'll be really interesting. But I think that's an interesting point around Poulter, where he's done well in away Ryder Cups, and it takes a different golfer to do it away. And maybe, you know, looking at Lee Westwood in 2016, didn't have a brilliant time of it. Some players just can't quite, you know, deal with that, and you're going to need Lee Westwood, and that's where Harrington is going to put his Lee Westwoods with his, you know, maybe a Wiesberger or Hovland with a Garcia and the four balls, just to kind of gather them through, because that's when you need your experience really in that afternoon when the American crowd get up for.
Yeah, Mark, for you, any of the pairings in the US that interest you?
Yeah, I think they're lucky and they're unlucky in the fact that they have 6 rookies. So the 6 rookies don't have any scar tissue. They've nothing to lose. They're coming here fresh faced, and they're going to just, like, they'll be facing the pressure, but they'll not remember anything about 2012 and Medina or anything like that. I think they're lucky in the fact that some of their partnerships seem to already be made up for them. So Spieth and JT, obviously, I think they went 3-1-0 in Paris. That's going to be a key role for them, and especially Spieth playing a lot better now than he was playing back in 2018 maybe. I think Xander and Cantley, they were on holidays together last week over in Napa, literally 10 minutes from the golf course, and they didn't even play the tournament that week. So that was an interesting thought. I think they should kick Brooks off the team and shouldn't be there in the first place. I'm hung up on that, as you can tell, but I'm so annoyed at reading that interview last week. Marcow is a little bit of a doubt. He's had a back issue at the Olympics, and then he's lost strokes, ball striking in his last 3 tournaments. His iron play hasn't been near as good. He's lost strokes off the tee in his last 3 tournaments, and lost strokes approach in his last 2 out of 3 tournaments. So I think that's really interesting. That's since the Olympics. So Marcow's a little bit of a doubt this week. I'm not too sure how he's going to turn up, and it's his first tournament, or his first Ryder Cup. And I also think that Daniel Berger will be the USA's answer to Ian Poulter. I think he can really get in our faces. I think he's as much of a killer as Cantley, and he's been actually pretty good. He's fourth in strokes gained total over the last 3 months, I think, as per Data Golf in the world. So his fourth stroke gains total. That's super good. Like, and I think he can just get in our faces. I think he will be that killer that will just sink a putt and walk off. And we've seen him winning playoffs before. I think what you were touching on there earlier, Conor, I think Bryson, if he's going to play, could be paired with Harris English. There's been a bit of talk around the fact that he could be paired with Tony Finau. I think the Americans are trying to hype up that one a bit, so a little bit of speculation around that. But that was after the WGC FedEx St. Jude, and Harris English and Bryson, and I think Bryson was playing slow, and Harris and English and Bryson were told to quicken up their pace. And Harris English actually lost that in the end. But I thought that was really interesting afterwards that he came out with those comments, and he was actually a bit sympathetic towards Bryson, saying that he feels sorry for him, that the crowd is always on his back. So there seems to be a little bit of a relationship there, a little bit of camaraderie. Maybe English is just trying to work his way onto the team by saying that he's friends with Bryson when no one else will. But I think that's interesting. So for me, it's Xander and Cantley, it's Spieth and Thomas, and then it's new blood. There's no relationships there. I think that Harris English and Bryson actually could be a really good pair. And Tony Finau, I think I agree with what you were saying earlier, Sean, that I think he'll have a really key part to play. His first Ryder Cup was back in 2018, and he went. I can't remember what he went, but he had a good Ryder Cup. He won a singles on the Sunday. So yeah, there's definitely really good, strong partnerships there. A little nugget there that I read earlier: driving distance, 8 out of the 12 USA team have an average of over 300 yards off the tee, whereas the Europeans is only 6 out of 12. Putting, 6 out of the 12 USA team are within the top 35 of strokes gained putting, whereas only 3 out of our 12 are. And then finally, in birdie average, the US team, 12 out of 12 of them, all ranked within the top 25 of birdie average on the PGA Tour last season, whereas only 3 out of our 12 ranked within the top 40. So, boy, God, we need to start making birdies. But listen, I think the US team, all the numbers stack up in their favour, and that's really good for them. I'm delighted for them, but no. I think we have like so much better camaraderie between our team. I think it's going to be a key part, and I don't think it's ever as overstated as it is this week. I think they're going to go in there. They're going to need to be relying on each other. And I'll tell you just a quick one that I thought was a really interesting perspective, that the European team gets along a lot better because they all start on the European Tour together. And when they're traveling across Europe, they don't have as much money as they have in the PGA Tour. So they all have to stay within the same houses. So Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Wiesberger, if they're going to play in Switzerland, they might have to stay in the same house together to save a little bit of money earlier in their career. Whereas on the PGA Tour, because there's so much money, they're always going with their own personal teams, physios, chefs, on their private jet, and they don't talk to other players as much. So maybe that's a little bit of an explanation as to why the USA team doesn't seem to get along as well as the European team. But hey, listen, if that's the way, then I won't ever let them fly together. I think we should keep it that way forever.
Something Sean said, isn't it? The 12 millionaire sign of things kind of resonate with me a bit with the American vibes. But listen, we're way over time here, lads, so we're going to do a quick score prediction. I want a score prediction on maybe the star man for US and Europe, and maybe the top point scorer sort of thing. So maybe to you first, Sean, score prediction, who's going to be the key player for Europe and then the key player for US?
Yeah, kind of caught me on the hop there, Dan. I think the only way Europe win is if they're ahead before the singles, and I don't think they will. I think America will kind of wreak havoc in the four balls. So, my calculations are right. I think 15-12, the US
28 points total, so 15-13.
15-12 or 15-12. Or sorry, 15 and a half, 12 and a half. That's what I have written down. Sorry. I'll go with that. And the key player for Europe, I'm going to say Fleetwood. I think if they can get a pairing with him. Yeah, I like Tommy Fleetwood. And the key player for the US, I think it's either between Cantley or Finau, but I'm going to go with Tony Finau.
Okay, for you then, Conor, prediction and key players.
Yeah, I am. I think you shared it earlier on today, Mark, about eight of the last 9 being decided on Sunday. So I kind of dug a little bit more back to see was there any correlation in the 4-ball and the foursomes, and there's zero correlation with the 4-ball, which I think the Yanks are going to walk. I think it could be a bit of a bloodbath, but 6 of the last 7 winners won the foursomes as well. So I think that's going to be a huge part of it. It's all going to come down to the pairings, the tactics. Harrington's kind of, I guess he's really going to have to orchestrate the lads so that he can get every inch or every half a point out of the team on the Friday and Saturday mornings. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a 40.5, 50.5, one side or the other, a bit of a coin flip. But Europe do need they need a buffer going into it. And yeah, it's going to be the Americans are going to win the singles and the 4-ball, and it literally is going to come down to the foursomes, in my opinion. Yeah, I think Hovland is my guy for the week. I just think he could be the Ona Maguire. If Lowry does it, great, but I just think Holland is absolutely set to jump onto the scene here and lap it up in his first year. There's one kind of long shot bet that I've kind of found. It's Europe to win, Hovland to be the best Europe point scorer, and Cantlay to be the best US, and it's 125 to 1. So worth a fiver. But definitely. Yeah, I just think it's in my heart, I think Europe are going to do it, and I think that's how they're going to do it. It's going to come right down to the wire, and yeah, it's hopefully a great weekend.
That's what we like to hear on this podcast now. 125 to 1 shot. That's what we want to hear. On the score prediction side, I think over to you, Mark. Sorry, and just you were saying 14.5, 13.5. Conor, is that to Europe or US?
Oh, to Europe. Or 14 to 15. 14.5, 15.5, is it?
Or 13.5, isn't it? 28.
14, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
We're getting there. No, it's confusing me as well as the half that confuses everyone. Yeah. Into you, Mark.
I've just put my Karen Dundee to try and max out in that bet 125 to 1. So Monday morning, boys, we'll all be on a private jet to Las Vegas or something.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think we'll actually get a bit of a lead in the 4-ball and the foursomes. I think we have experience there, and I think that accounts for a lot. And I think that's going to be really, really good for us. I think if it comes down to the nitty gritty on Sunday and it comes down to those last few matches, I can just see European having that little bit of heart and being the underdogs, and I can see Poulter maybe going out 4th or 5th on Sunday, and then he's coming back around to the 12th guy or the 11th guy to encourage him on. So I think we'll build up a little bit of a lead Friday and Saturday. I think we'll have learned that we need to perform better on Friday mornings. I think we'll go into Sunday with maybe a 3 or 4 point lead, and I think that the USA will battle back well, but I just think that we'll have that little bit of heart. So I'm agreeing with Conor here. I think I'm going with 14.5 to 13.5. I think the best player for me for Europe will be Victor Hovland, and the best player for USA will be Justin Thomas. I think he just has so much heart, and he has so much interest in winning this, and he'll be getting along well. He'll have Jordan Spieth on his side. He'll be the leader in that locker room on Friday morning, and I think if the USA are looking for a bit of motivation, I think JT will be their man. If we're looking for a little bit of money, I actually think Daniel Berger 16 to 1 to be top USA point scorer. As I'm telling you, I think he could be key for America at this. And just to finish, I think Netflix could make an entire documentary on just being in the USA locker room this week, just to see the ambience that is there. I think it would be a worldwide seller, and it would be great to see. But no, I think Europe will edge it out in the end, and it'll be we'll all be drinking blue wickets on Sunday night.
Yeah, I just what Mark said about Justin Thomas, I think that's a very good point. I don't think we really mentioned him. I think he might excel without Patrick Reed and really become the Captain America. But I just think it also to know it's 20 years now, I think, or 30 years now since the War on the Shore, the famous one with all the controversy. I don't think we get through this Ryder Cup without there being a serious load of controversy, whether it's the fans shouting at Brooksy, the American fans shouting Brooksy or Bryson at each other. But I think there's going to be something, and it's happened in the last couple of, in the Solheim Cup, in the President's Cup, there's going to be a ruling or there's going to be something, and it's, I hope they've sorted out those bunkers since the 2010 PGA with DJ, or I just feel like there's going to be something happens that's going to cause a ruckus, and to be honest, I can't wait for it.
I'm just picturing a massive fight now. I don't know why between Europe and
The war on the
Europe.
shore, 2.0.
War on the shore. For anyone wanting my opinion, 14.5, 13.5 euro. I thought I'd be alone on that, but I'm delighted the two lads. No real logic to it, to be honest. Just I even looked at the singles as you were talking, going, geez, we've no hope here at all. But I'm going for Europe, and I do. I think John Ram will have a big week for Europe. I think it's very interesting. I didn't have a good Ryder Cup the last time. I think he'll be really determined to prove that wrong, leaving aside all the PGA Tour Player of the Year and all that jazz. And yeah, for me, what you lads are saying, I kind of like the Daniel Berger angle, but for me, Xander Schauffele, very interesting. Obviously, he won the Olympics, which you nearly forget about until I think it was Sean that mentioned it. So he'd be the top US for me. But it's going to be a great week. It always is, isn't it? And I guess we only have it every 2 years. This year, we've had it every 3 years. But thanks, Mill, for listening. At Tackling Sport, get us on social media. But my thanks to Sean, to Conor, and to Mark.
Thanks, many guys. Cheers.
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks for having us on.
Cheers, Dan.
No worries at all. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you are watching us live, you can get this back as a podcast on all podcast platforms on Tuesday morning. Other than that, enjoy the Ryder Cup, and we'll be back on Thursday to preview the sport ahead of all the other sport with the Premier League, etc. This weekend. But in other words, enjoy the golf, and we will see you on Thursday.